The Yucatan is this gigantic limestone shelf that just jets out into the Caribbean Ocean. It's perfectly flat. So if you have any kind of perspective above the landscape, you literally can see pre-Columbian mounds kind of scattered throughout. Unlike most art historians, I don't start with a group of objects. My approach has always been a little bit more idea-driven. I've started with a kind of underlying assumption in the field of colonial studies, not just art history. And the one from that first book was the observation that scholars have been noting forever and ever and ever, that when the Spaniards came in the 16th century and they wanted to convert the indigenous population to Catholicism, they relied upon a process of architectural kind of usurping. And so what they did, quite simply, is they literally would build churches directly on top of pyramids. We find it archaeologically all over the place. But the question for me was, why did that work? To figure out the answer to that question, I started looking in Yucatan for exactly these kinds of things, where you have the base pyramid from the pre-Columbian period, and then right on top, a massive church, atrium, convent. And to tease out what that meant to the indigenous population, I had to go back to really different kinds of sources. So I spent a lot of time looking at indigenous mapping systems to try to figure out how they conceived of landscape and space and place. I looked at indigenous narratives of conquest to see how they understood kind of the beginning of place to be developed. I looked at naming practices, all these different kinds of things. These structures we tend to think about as being Catholic only, but really they're completely built by indigenous labor forces. So they are encoded in a way with indigenous knowledge systems, native understandings of sacrality and the sacred and the numinous, all of these things that, again, if you just look from the outside, seem to be traditionally Catholic. But if you understand the pre-Columbian world well, you start to see hints of kind of an indigenous holdover. And that's what makes Mexican Catholicism, and I would argue Yucatecan Catholicism, so interesting and intriguing, and kind of a puzzle that needs to be sorted out.